Welcome back everyone, it is Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're going to be switching things up with this video, and we're actually going to take a look at some Japanese tournament results, plus some of the deck lists that have been winning over there in Japan the past couple weeks or so. So as you can see, friends of the channel from PokemonCard.io have been nice enough to compile all these results, and as you can see, there are quite a few here. There's quite a few different decks that have been winning some of these local tournaments over in Japan lately. So we're actually not going to go through each of these different decks today. If you guys want to, of course, I will link all these results in the description for you. But I just want to go through some of the ones that caught my eye in terms of just like being unique decks, and also some different deck building trends that I think could be important, maybe even to look to for our Lost Origin format, despite Japan being on a slightly different format, since they do have access to a couple of the cards that will eventually appear in our Silver Tempest set. Though I will say, based on these results, it doesn't seem like they have been impacting things, too drastically just yet. Now, the only other thing I will mention about these tournaments, though, is that these aren't like regional sized events or anything. These are going to be like shop tournaments. So think of tournaments on the scale of like a league challenge or something like that. Just something to keep in the back of your mind as we are going through some of these deck lists today. But also, like I mentioned, guys, this is going to be the first time I've done a video like this. So if you do wind up enjoying this, feel free to leave a like on the video and a comment to let me know to do more of these in the future. Or if you guys have any feedback over how you guys, I think I should, approach these videos in the future. Again, I would love to hear any of your full thoughts down below today. But with that being said, I'm going to quit rambling. Let's head into these deck lists and see what's been winning over there in Japan. So the first decks I want to take a look at are going to be some Giratina lists, which I think seems kind of appropriate just because, we have Lost Origin about to drop. I think a lot of the community's focus right now is on Giratina. So up first we have like an Arceus VSTAR Giratina VSTAR sort of deck idea. This is actually very similar to my list that I have built right now for this deck. But instead of using the whole like comfy Lost Zone engine, use Giratina to get your energy into play. So that seems pretty cool. You throw like a 3-3, 4-3 Arceus VSTAR line in any deck, it's going to be pretty decent by default, right? Other than that, there's not a whole lot of bells and whistles. They have the Radiant Hawlucha plus the Choice Belt to be able to one-shot VMAXs. All that seems good. Got some Averys in here for, I'm assuming, Palkia, and probably the Reggie deck as well. They are playing Piers. That's kind of interesting, but I think largely speaking, if you guys haven't seen too much of like the Arceus version for Giratina, this is, I think, a pretty good snapshot of what these types of decks might be looking like. But that being said, I did want to also take a peek at a couple of more traditional, like comfy Lost Engine sort of versions of Giratina, because there are some interesting things that some players I noticed are doing. So in particular for this list, we see they're playing the 4 capture energy in the list. Lately, I've just been playing, Battle VIP Pass, but it looks like they are favoring a little bit more heavily on these. And I guess it kind of makes sense too. Like you can toss them away like in the mid game with Radiant Greninja. So that seems pretty cool. But one thing I did pick up on as well, I think it's also in, also in this list as well, is that some of these Giratina lists are playing like a heavier escape rope count. And that might be, if I had to guess, due to maybe Empoleon V. And that's something I do want to touch on in another moment too. So the escape rope might be something to keep in mind, for the upcoming Lost Origin format. If Empoleon does catch on, we might need to start playing like heavier escape rope counts in these sorts of like Lost Engine decks. That way they can't actually shut down your comfies. And also I did notice a couple of these lists were playing a very thin Giratina line. Like this is almost more of a Lost like Zone toolbox deck, if you will. We have the, the thin line of Giratina. We got the Cramorants, Sableye. We have Snorlax. They're also playing the Water Energy, similar to the list I posted on the channel recently. So they can even make use of things like Radiant Greninja or Lumineon. I noticed they also are playing Switch Cart. That seems kind of cool. Maybe just a little bit gimmicky, just because it doesn't work with Giratina VSTAR. But I don't know. Maybe, like realistically, if you're attacking with Giratina VSTAR, you're probably not switching it out of the active on the next turn. So I don't know, maybe Switch Cart could be good. But yeah, just a couple of interesting card inclusions we had for some of these Giratina lists. But speaking of Empoleon V, this is something I actually noticed in quite a few different water decks, whether it's Palkia VSTAR, Ice Rider. A lot of these decks are playing Empoleon V, which seems like it could be a good option for you know, going against a lot of these decks that are playing comfy, just because the Empoleon does have the ability that's going to shut off the abilities for those other single prize basic Pokemon out there. So this definitely seems like a cool tech card. I do like that. Also good against just a variety of different things. And speaking of Palkia, we also do have like a turbo style deck, which again is playing the Empoleon V, as well as some other kind of interesting cards. We got a Starmie, we got a Suicune, we have a Ditto V, another card we see a whole lot of here. We also have Ice Rider here I want to take a look at. Nothing too crazy. Again, they are playing the Empoleon, but another card I do want to point out is Lost Vacuum. So it looks like we are starting to see some players over in Japan, you know, incorporate this card into their list, even if they're not playing a deck that is like directly based around getting stuff into the Lost Zone. So next up, we're going to take a look at some UV Max variants. Now, there were several to look at, but there was like a handful that were really playing some wild stuff here. And this one is going to be one of them. As you can see, they're playing, you know, they got the UV Maxes, they got Genesect, they got Oricorio, all the staples here. But they have one double turbo energy, and it looks like 11 metal energy plus metal saucers. This is like almost more of a Genesect deck than a UV Max deck. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, maybe they're worried about Ice Rider over there, like maybe that's something players are worried about. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Oh, and they're playing Peony as well. Oh, also interesting, are they playing, oh no, they're not playing Boss, but they are playing Cross Switcher. Okay, so this is definitely a cool idea. My knee-jerk reaction is that this doesn't seem great. Like, just looking at this, I'm like, is this really winning tournaments? But I mean, it's still Genesect and Mew at the end of the day. You can still draw through like half your deck on turn one, so I suppose. And I guess Pokestop actually does make sense here too, because like you're playing a lot of energy, which is an issue for a deck like Mew, because you can't play down your hand if your whole hand is energy, and Pokestop can help like pitch away excess metals to activate Metal Saucers. So this seems cool. Yeah, kind of gimmicky, but who knows? Maybe it's okay. We also have what is, you know, a little bit of more traditional sort of UV Max list here, but this one is another one of these decks that is integrating the new Lost Vacuum into their list as well. We can see they are playing some stadiums. They are playing, it looks like Lost City right here next to Oricorio. Pretty sure that's what that is. But on top of that, they're also playing the 3 Lost Vacuums. So I'm curious why they're favoring the Lost City over like Rose Tower, for example, because this seems like in a lot of cases it would help like Giratina players. Maybe it's like for like the Reggie deck or something, because if you knock out their Reggies and they go to the Lost Zone with Lost City in play, you know, they're going to be having a hard time, I think. But yeah, definitely some very interesting deck building you know, decisions that we're seeing from some of these Japanese players. But there's one other UV Max deck that really caught my eye that I did not see coming at all. And that is going to be, yeah, this one right here. It's UV Max, but they're playing a 2/2 Origin Dialga VSTAR in their deck as well. But as you can see, it's kind of like the first Mew list we took a look at, where it seems like they're much more committed to Genesect as an attacker than Mew. They're playing just a 2/1 UV Max lane, which, I mean, I guess since you have the Silene, it's not that big of a deal, as you can keep looping Mew if you need it back. But I'm just curious about the Origin Dialga. Like, you can't copy the attacks on Origin Dialga, which makes this kind of puzzling to me. I guess with Silene, like using Genesect as your draw engine and using Silene, you can actually keep looping Metal Saucers to be able to power up Dialga kind of quickly. So maybe it's like they're using Genesect and Silene as their engine to keep like getting energies quickly onto Dialga. That seems kind of cool. So yeah, I guess I don't even know if you want to call this a UV Max deck. It feels like it's like a Genesect, or it feels like it's an Origin Dialga deck that's playing the Fusion Strike engine to get set up, if that makes sense. And then just has Mew as like a backup attacker, I guess. So, yeah, very creative deck building from Japan over there right now. We have another Origin Dialga deck, though. This one, instead of using the Fusion Strike engine, it's going to be using the Lost engine, which I thought was kind of neat. So they can keep, you know, pitching cards away into the Lost Zone, then eventually use like Mirage Gate, I guess, to get a little bit of extra energy acceleration. Like, it looks like they're still leaning most heavily on Metal Saucer, but then they still have the 2 Mirage Gates in there. You can't get the full 2 energy since you have to get different types with Mirage Gate, but this is basically still just a search your deck for a metal energy and attach it, which is still good. So this concept makes sense to me. I don't know if this is better than just playing the normal like Mew sort of engine, but definitely cool to see Comfy and this whole engine being used outside of like just Giratina. So another deck that I didn't expect to really do that much is actually Kyurem V Max. There's actually quite a few Kyurem decks that were winning over there in Japan. And I think largely speaking, this list looks kind of how you might expect to see a Kyurem deck. They're playing the double Primate Wisdom Oranguru to ensure they have energy on top of their deck. So that makes sense. And as you can see, they're also playing the, oh god, is it Wash Energy? That tells you how like good this card has been up until this point. So this thing prevents effects of attacks, if I remember right. And if I had to guess, I imagine this would be to like prevent Giratina's VSTAR power from being activated on you. And you can see they're also playing a Rose. It's kind of faint there. It's like sandwiched between the two Marnies, but that could be a way to like cheat some quick energies onto your Kyurem. And then I guess in theory, you have your Barrel to draw you out of the hand if you do go down to a 0 card hand with that. So next up, we have one of the only decks I found that was using the new Incandescent Arcana cards. We have a Darkrai VSTAR deck that's also playing Ho-Oh-V. So the Ho-Oh-V, if it's in your discard pile, you can get it out with 4 basic energies and end your turn. So this is, I think, like the ideal turn 1 play you want. Like, especially if you're going first, you want to be able to search out Ho-Oh, pitch it away into the discard pile with a bunch of energy, get it back out to get like a big head start on like your damage output. So that makes sense in my mind a little bit here. Now looking at the rest of the list, looks about how you'd expect. They got the Pokestops to help getting Ho-Oh set up in the discard a little bit easier. You can pitch away dark energies in the process as well. Definitely seems like a cool idea here. We see they're not playing like the baby Galarian Moltres or anything like that. But yeah, this could be a cool idea worth trying out. I mean, it apparently worked out for this player who won a tournament. But I am curious, like the size of the tournament this player won and how often the Ho-Oh actually worked. But I can imagine if you have the Ho-Oh working pretty consistently, then I mean, that does give your Darkrai deck like a 120 damage buff to start the game with after the first turn. So could be something. So next up, we have another deck that kind of took me by surprise by the number of wins that it had. That's going to be the Hisuian Arcanine that we're about to get in Lost Origin. So in this list, it's hard to make out what this thing is here. Oh, I think it's Mightyena. But yeah, it looks like it's almost kind of like a Zoroark toolbox of sorts. So they can use Zoroark to transform into their Arcanines. That makes sense. They have the Altaria to put a supporter on top of deck. So after you put yourself at like a 0 card hand, you can use Altaria to, manipulate your top deck to ensure that you don't have a dead hand on your next turn. Looks like they're playing Peony. They got Ball Guy. That makes sense because you can grab like Ultra Balls and Quick Balls to play down your hand to a low size. I'm pretty sure that's what this card right here is. But yeah, that would make sense. Interesting, they're not playing Grant. That's a card I kind of expected to see here, if I'm being honest, because it's like a perpetual -2 to your hand size. But I guess maybe it just didn't make the cut. I don't know. They got the 3 Twin Energies. I like that. Gives your deck like a little bit of a way to retreat once in a while. But overall, I think this seems pretty cool. It looked like a lot of the players who were playing Arcanine were using like a Zoroark sort of idea here. So maybe that's the way to go with this. We'll have to see. But it makes me happy at least to see like single prize decks like this doing well. And for the last 2 lists, we have a couple of other like Lost Zone or Lost Engine like deck ideas. So this one's going to be leaning a little bit more heavily on the Amazing Rare Raikou as like the main attacker for that double 120 snipe. But they also have the Rayquaza here as well for like, I guess like a big one-shotting option. But one inclusion I do like too is they are playing the Ditto from Pokemon Go. So even if their Raikou or their one of Rayquaza gets knocked out, they can always still copy these attacks with Ditto. So this seems pretty cool. Yeah, yet again, this is one of the only decks that we're taking a look at that is playing some cards from Incandescent Arcana. You can see they have the one of, oh god, is it Serena? I think the name of this card is. But it's the one that gives you the option of like a gusting effect or like a discarding sort of effect. But yeah, I think it seems pretty cool. And then for the last deck is going to be around Mewtwo V Union. This is actually one of the uses for the whole like Lost Engine that I've been the most excited for. I mean, we've seen Mewtwo be used as like a stall deck up until this point. We've seen some other players try to use it with Arceus, but just in general, the thing I do like about all of the V unions, just in general with the Lost Engine, is that you can't start with them. So that means you have like a much higher likelihood to start with your comfy as opposed to like any other normal deck that would use like this whole engine. So that is something I really do like about this. Then they use the Mirage Gates to help get the Mewtwo set up. And looks like they have a couple of other like one of sort of attackers. They have, interesting, they got Ninetales V. Not a card we see too often, I gotta say. They got the Radiant Charizard. And I think this is the Zeraora. I can't quite tell, but I think this is Zeraora. But obviously the Mewtwo V Union is like the big selling point to this list though. But looking at the trainer cards, I don't think there's anything too crazy. I mean, they have the Peonia to fish the Mewtwo pieces out of the prizes if need be. But other than that, you know, I think definitely the Pokemon are the most interesting part of this list here. But with that being said, guys, that's going to be all the list that I want to show off today. And there's still a ton of other deck lists you can check out over there on PokemonCard.io. But again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is something I haven't done on the channel before. If you guys want to see more of these, or if you have any feedback for these types of videos going forward, feel free to sound off down below in the comment section. But of course, guys, if you did enjoy today's video, remember to leave a like. And if you're feeling a little bit extra generous and want to take that support to the next level, you can also become a patron over at patreon.com/rarecandytcg or pick up some merch over at rarecandytcg.com. Links to everything will be down below in the description. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.